What is much more traumatic than most people realize? Story 1. Being the peacekeeper in a toxic or dysfunctional family. You grow up thinking it's normal to suppress your needs to keep everyone else calm, and it messes with your sense of self more than you realize. Answer. I've been that person as the middle child, but it's also traumatizing to look back as an adult and realize how much an older sibling was protecting me and jumping in front of bullets. During summer break from school, there were days when my sister would tell me to go outside and play, and she meant now. I could see it on her face and hear it in her voice. Soon after that, I would hear my mother start screaming at my sister so loud we could hear it at the other end of the block. My friends would look at me and I was so embarrassed, I would just look down at whatever toys we were playing with. My sister made herself the target of my mother's abuse and protected me. Story 2. Growing up in a household where you constantly had to manage other people's emotions. It teaches you to ignore your own needs, and that love is something you have to earn by walking on eggshells. Answer. I had this life. Don't say or do anything that will cause a temper tantrum. My father was thought to be a swell guy outside the house, but when it's just us, he was a gaslighting, racist, bipolar, hoarder who over-medicated and went crazy whenever he gets called out by Mom on how he treats us. The argument usually ended there as Mom and I both retreat to our rooms to wait out the storm. Video games kept me sane. I don't think Mom coped so well as she started having bouts of delirium near the end of her life. Hard to watch. I was to blame for being lazy and not helping them out more. According to my dad, Mom died in April 2nd, 2018. Dad died the same day, 2 years later, of COVID. He made sure his attorney knew it was my fault this happened to the family. Other than Dad's life insurance money, which they had to give me, I never saw a dime, neither from the sale of the house or from the lawsuit of the nursing home where Mom had been kept in her final months. They were neglectful, and she had bumps and bruises when I would visit from falling out of her bed. I still have trauma, according to my therapist, because I have days where I feel like everyone is mad at me and I'm in a trouble, even though I can't remember what I did wrong. Story 3. Dealing with a family member with dementia. Edit. Just to be clear, I'm not referring to the sadness of losing a loved one or being heartbroken when they can't remember my name. I'm talking about what it does to your psyche and the trauma to your very own well-being. The PTSD was something I wasn't warned about. The panic attacks, the terror of going to sleep at night alone. My career didn't survive, my marriage didn't survive, and I almost didn't survive. It's better now, but it's been a difficult road. Answer. Definitely. When my mom had it, I was torn between respecting her as my mother and making decisions for her that she fought against because she didn't think she needed help. It felt so disrespectful to have to treat her like a child. Luckily, I had older siblings who were better at taking charge than I was because I always gave in and let her have her way. Story 4. Betrayal. Never knew how painful it was until I experienced it, and my entire life got flipped upside down because of it. Answer. Betrayal from someone you never thought would hurt you is unbelievably hard to move on from. Someone I considered one of my best friends absolutely destroyed me to the point I could barely eat for over a month. I basically lived off of smoothies. The constant and extreme anxiety was the worst I have ever experienced. Still haven't moved past it and don't know if I ever will. Story 5. Bedbugs. People eliminate themselves over infestations for a reason. It's actual psychological torture. Answer. If I ever get bedbugs again, I'm burning the house down. I once had them bad and couldn't figure out how to get rid of them. Looking back, I saw the signs early, but didn't put 2 and 2 together. So there were times when I couldn't sleep in my own bed because the fuckers were all over me. Eventually, I got a can of Raid bed bug killer that said it lasted 6 weeks. Sprayed down my entire bed and the carpet around it and hit any bugs directly. Thankfully, they never left the area around the bed, so that was enough. They all died and never came back. Story 6. Not being able to find a diagnosis when your doctor has tried almost everything. Just had another test not show anything conclusive, and honestly, I'm so tired, and trying not to cry in the hospital makes me feel like maybe I'm just being dramatic and people actually always feel this way. Answer: I hear you. I feel I need to tell this not to worry you, but to say it is okay to keep pushing to get something diagnosed or at least explained. My wife had been experiencing various pains and was routinely fobbed off by doctors who failed to understand pain in women. She had asked many times to be tested for cancer and was told at 32 she was too young to be worrying about that. A year later, she was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. By this time, it had spread basically everywhere, and chemo was never going to stop it. She passed a year later. I don't know how much better things would have been if they tested earlier, but it does make me angry sometimes. She forgave the doctors who apologized after she was diagnosed, but the whole experience of hospitals, tests, diagnoses, chemo really opened my eyes to how poorly women are treated by the whole health system. And I am ashamed to admit that I also minimized her pain before the diagnosis. I wish I had listened to her and supported her position regarding her body and how it felt to her. I know better now. Story 7. Having severe anxiety as a child, not knowing why you're terrified all the time, and being afraid to tell anyone because you're afraid people will think you're crazy or a private area. Being too shy to talk to people, so making friends is hard, and other idiot children deeming you a weirdo loser. So school becomes a nightmare that you're legally forced into 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. The amount I wish I could go back in time and tell my parents I needed help is ridiculous. Answer: I've had this exact same experience. It was so bad I was selectively mute. I had no friends from elementary to high school. I don't understand how my parents or any teachers didn't do anything. I remember only being sent to the counselor one time, and I remember telling them I was always scared of my family dying or something bad going to happen. Nothing came of that. I clearly had severe anxiety and OCD. It's straight-up neglect. Story 8. Growing up and not showed love by your parents. No hugs, no kisses, no good job, I'm proud of you. Nothing. My parents never showed affection to each other either. It's hard. Answer: I feel that. It's awful. I'll never forget being at a friend's baby shower. One of friend's aunts approached my mom and gushed about how I was working full-time, finishing my PhD, planning a wedding, and had just published in a journal. My mom's reaction: I'm not proud of her. Why would I be proud of something who is doing what is expected? I cried in the bathroom shortly afterwards. Story 9. Friendships ending. When relationships end badly, there is more of an acknowledgement of the impacts, but I've been way more impacted by close friendships ending. Answer: losing friendships is tough. I've been through a couple friendships that have ended badly. It's difficult, and I feel like it doesn't really get the recognition it needs. I've had friendships that have started to turn sour, and when I've asked for advice, I've been told to just stop talking with those people. But it's not that simple when you deeply care about someone. You want to find a way to make it work, even when you know it's not going to. And when it does end, it's heartbreaking. Story 10. I would say all those little insults thrown your way when you were younger. Oh, they didn't mean anything. Don't be so sensitive, etc. Decades later, you have not forgotten the words said to you, and you are still hurt by them. Words can hurt for life. Answer: yeah, my 13, yo just brought something up that happened 9 months ago that still bothered him. He thought I was making fun of him for something he didn't know, but was just a misunderstanding. I couldn't even remember what the situation was, B. He certainly did because of how it made him feel. As a parent, you have to be conscious of how you say things and how it might impact your child. I felt pretty bad when he told me that. I had no idea. Story 11. Teasing by family members. Parents generally not liking their kids because they're different. Grew up in a family where I was the butt of a lot jokes, and the family did a lot of unflattering impressions of me. Seems like society frowns upon this a lot more than when I was growing up, which is good. Story 12. Food shaming when you're young. The juxtaposition of should you really be eating all that, and you can't leave the table till you clean your plate. Foot up my relationship with food so bad I'm still struggling 20 years later. Answer: my brother used to be kinda of fat during pandemic. He was 9 to 12. It's okay to parents control what kids eat because they need to be healthy. But my parents became obsessed with his weight in a way that they would talk about it every time we eat it together. Now that he hit puberty and is getting taller and hitting the guy, he is not fat at all, but he still thinks he is. Doesn't like when someone sees him without a shirt on, and still cries when we talk about that subject. Story 13. Moving often. I had to leave so many childhood friends behind, never to be seen again. And being the new kid so often has given me crippling social anxiety. Answer: I've dealt with a few of the things listed in other posts in this thread, but moving often is what I think shaped me more than any of the others. I can be bubbly and friendly and overall come across well in most settings, and I'm absolutely fine at talking with anybody. But it's like there's this disconnect between that step and the step where you actually become friends that I really struggle with. I do have friends, but I'm just very bad at getting past that hurdle most of the time. Story 14. Emotional neglect. A parent spouse doesn't have to be outwardly hurtful, physically abusive, violent, loud, etc. in order for deep mental scars to form. Simply ignoring you is enough. You could have all your physical needs technically met and never suffer 1 ounce of physical harm, but there's nothing that makes up for being treated like you're just there. Story 15. Living in a hoarder house. I've realized it really did mess me up a bit. It wasn't full hoarder when I was a kid, just embarrassingly cluttered. Now it's stuff stacked everywhere, and I'll offer to try clearing it up or throwing things out, and my mother will have some bullshit attachment to stuff that is just junk. It just makes me worry that when my folks pass, I might have to argue with my sister over getting rid of this stuff, or be too old and weak myself to get rid of it all. It feels like mortality made into piles of real tangible objects stacked everywhere. Both sets of grandparents' houses. Were the fudge same too? Story 16. Facing every kind of abuse as a child and always being told it's your fault. Then, as an adult, finding out everyone in the family knew about it and did nothing because I was a difficult kid and it wasn't their business. Then being told in my 30s, and I just need to get over it already. Story 17. Being in a friend group, but not being treated like a friend. In one group, my friends only kept me around so that they could make fun of me and put me down regularly. In many others, I was basically left on the periphery of the group and was only called to hang out when they needed extra people, or if someone called out last minute and they needed a replacement. Really doesn't make me feel like I'm valued by anyone. Answer: Having to initiate contact to be included, being left off getting asked to do things, hearing plans but never directly asked to come or participate. No one comes to the things you plan. It's exhausting and heartbreaking. And it's not like I'm a downer or complainer. I try to be fun. People seem to enjoy my company and conversations when I'm there, but never enough to be wanted when I'm not there. Story 18. Losing a close friendship, especially without closure, is often far more traumatic than most people realize. Story 19. Guilt being the go-to teaching method as a kid. I'm 33 years old, and only in recent years of therapy am I realizing the effect that had on me. As a kid, I was guilted for being mad at my bullies, having depression, setting boundaries, for feeling out of place, and for having other emotions that I later found out were perfectly normal. And now I'm still trying to unravel the deep-seated dread I feel when I step out of line with anything or am not 100% grateful for every shortcoming in my life. Story 20. Being neglected not only as a person but as a young girl who had no one willing to teach me about anything. Story 21. Being pregnant giving birth. I realize that people recognize that giving birth can be traumatic, but pregnancy and birth can permanently alter your body in a lot of ways, including tripping autoimmune disorders that lay dormant in your body. Answer. We have a great OB at my job that will counsel women before birth that pregnancy, labor, and delivery are inherently traumatic. I think it's great because it manages the expectation that is perpetuated on social media that birth is beautiful if you do it the exact right way. Buy my product, don't go to a hospital, blah, blah, blah. She says something like, birth is beautiful, but it's common for it to tie as the best and worst day of your life. That doesn't mean anything is wrong, it just means that if you find it more traumatic than you thought it would be, that's a normal feeling. Story 22. Never being praised or encouraged in any way. Growing up, nothing was good enough for my dad. I could always have done more. If I got poor grades, I was ridiculed. If I got good grades, I was told I must have cheated. Any drawing I was proud of was traced. Any sport I wanted to do, any instrument I wanted to play, any class I wanted to take, I would fail. He would complain that I was a picky eater, then get angry when I wanted to try something new because I would dislike it, and it would be a waste of money. He would complain that I didn't just know what chores to do, then get angry when I tried to do them anyway with no guidance because I was doing them wrong. You stagnate very easily when there's no point to anything. Story 23. Being lied to by someone close to you may seem harmless, but I have seen it completely tear people apart, especially people who have cheated, or partners and lied, or just lied about other important things. Story 24. Never having a childhood because of parentification, having to take care of your parents opposed to vice versa. Story 25. Being told that you cannot leave the table until you finish everything on the plate. Now I struggle with saying no, managing portion sizes, and eating mindfully because I'm scared of seeming rude and disrespectful. Story 26. Having 247 access to breaking news, it creates a false sense of narrative that everything is bad all the time and that major crime incidents are happening constantly. Story 27. Y'all are gonna laugh at me for this, but working customer service, I still get intense nightmares about rush hours, abusive customers, understaffing, and unrelenting work that never feels fast enough, even though you are doing everything that you can. It has me waking up in a cold sweat. Story 28. Maybe something people realize is traumatic, but not how traumatic. Being restrained in the hospital. Being physically restrained in a psych ward is one of the most dehumanizing and traumatic things a person can go through. It's not just about being held down or tied up. It's the complete loss of autonomy, the fear, the helplessness, and often the lack of explanation or consent. You're treated like a danger instead of a person in crisis. Even if staff think they're keeping you safe, it can feel like punishment or control, not care. The psychological damage doesn't end when the restraints come. Off. For many people, it leaves lasting trauma, especially if you already have a history of abuse, PTSD, or difficulty trusting others. There absolutely needs to be more focus on trauma-informed care in psychiatric settings. Story 29. Chronic health problems. It's not a single traumatic event. It's repeated small traumas that teach you to act differently. It's every doctor who doesn't believe you. It's every family member who thinks you just need to get out more. It's every friend who thinks you should just stop worrying about it. This is all even worse if you don't yet have a diagnosis. Story 30. A miscarriage. Before my wife had one, I had always imagined it as super early, just a clump of cells. But we had seen him moving around. We had heard his heartbeat. We had chosen a name. Story 31. Being neglected as a kid, growing up not knowing how to understand the world mentally, emotionally. No basic life skills. Makes things that are easy to everyone around you terrifying to even try. Story 32. People need to realize that not every person is traumatized by the same things. Some are fine after a car accident, others have severe trauma. We are not all the same. This is not a competition. Story 33. Being bullied by a sibling. People don't take it seriously because it's just kid stuff. But when you're a kid too, you're being tormented by someone bigger than you, who lives in your house, so there's no escape. I told my husband recently some of the stuff my sister used to do to me. I'd told him some stuff before, but I don't think it'd gone into precise detail. For days afterwards, he just kept hugging me and saying, "You didn't deserve that." It's not normal. Answer. I've finally gone in-see with my sibling bully and finally seeking therapy. They're older than me, so I didn't know life without their shadow being cast over me, and it took very long time to recognize what they were doing, even when it got horrendously, unforgivably bad. My final straw was watching them do some awful stuff to our younger siblings. I recognize that it does seem like I tolerate things happening to me that I think are unacceptable when they happen to someone else. I'm finally seeking therapy for it, now in my early 30s. I got my intake appointment with a therapist in a few days. I'm so glad you have a wonderful husband who listened to you and responded how he did. It's frustrating how other family members are so dismissive. Story 34. Undiagnosed neurodivergence, dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, autism, etc. Theory is that the vast majority of prison inmates have some form of undiagnosed neurodivergent issue, as well as addicts and people with mental health problems. Growing up undiagnosed causes a tremendous output of trauma that often can never be repaired or overcome. Answer. Working through this now as someone that was undiagnosed ADHD until 28. I came to believe so many negative things about myself that aren't true. I developed an anxiety disorder and a heart condition due to 28 years of putting myself under unneeded stress just to get anything done. I've been in therapy for a year and a half just trying to get my life together, unlearn unhealthy coping mechanisms that I've developed, and figure out how to take care of myself properly. And that's a good case scenario with going undiagnosed, as like you said, many undiagnosed adults end up with serious mental health and/or substance abuse issues. So parents, please, if you have a child that is getting feedback about being disruptive in class, or a gifted kid that is struggling with motivation and applying themselves, get them assessed. There are so many more resources for children than adults. I don't want my kid to feel different than other kids is not an excuse. They will still feel different. They just won't understand why and will think it's a personal failing. Story 35. Childhood experiences. If it was as easy as you're an adult now, it's been X amount of years, get over it, we would have done it by now. Story 36. Parents who stay in horrible marriages just for their children. It teaches your children that it's better to stay in a bad relationship than leaving and being on your own. Story 37. Not being able to afford medical care, so you have to put things off, knowing it's going to get worse, but the need doesn't change that you can't afford it. There are a lot of people I know who have this, particularly around dental care. Since it's so often categorized as its own thing rather than just part of medicine and health, there are generally far less options for help, even in emergency situations, at least in the USA. Here, you can go to the emergency room, get told without immediate treatment, this will eliminate you, then get sent home with instructions to see a dentist for treatment as soon as possible. Story 38. Always being criticized by your family and never being understood. Being different from them and being treated as it's not okay to be you just because you are different from them. Story 39. All traumatized people will not deal with it as the public has speculated. It's entirely individual and a darn miracle if you're able to attain healing. I've been very blessed with mitigation by grandparents and others who, by their struggle, gave me courage to face mine. Still, it took 55 years at least to feel the lessons of the struggle ameliorated the pain of it. Ultimately, there's reason to be grateful I survived. Millions never even disclose. 90%. The public just cannot know how deep trauma is not appreciated nor understood in our country. My heartfelt empathy and respect for all survivors of CSA and all other abuse. Story 40. Long-term, think decade or more, cancer treatments. Most people think you're either going to die or end up in remission. Then there are those of us who have such aggressive cancer that nothing works except something that pauses it. The thing is, nobody knows how long the pause will last until it quits working. You're basically retired from being disabled from the damage this long of a fight has caused. You're trying to live a normal life around your health, but there is literally an axe held over your head at all times. It's the trauma of a chronic illness on steroids. Story 41. So many, but one that I've just been realizing is the toll that autism masking takes on a person. Never knowing how you're supposed to act, not understanding why people think you're acting weird, angry, disengaged. It's the emotional equivalent of living in a place where you can never learn the language, but nobody knows you're not from there. Story 42. Betrayal trauma. My partner of 12 years left me for my best friend of 10 years, and the grief has been almost unbearable. Weekly therapy since April has helped a lot, but I still never feel like I'll be completely whole again. Story 43. Violation when you are a man. I was 4 or 5 and I still remember everything and I'm 39. But the few peoples I have opened up just taught me to get over it. It was years ago. Answer. Honestly, with you, the scary thing.